What we'll also do is we'll share the recording with you later on. So if you need a copy of the recording, please do feel free to ask Chantel. If you have any questions at all, please do feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll try to monitor that as I'm going through. I'll also try and keep an eye on the waiting room. So if we do get people popping in, do excuse me for a second while I try to let them into the room. So I'm going to get cracking in about a minute or so. Just going to allow a couple of seconds just to see if we get any more people turning up. And then we'll get going on this today. Hi, good morning, Amina.
Hey Ryan, how you going?
I'm not too bad. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. Is it a reasonable time of day over there for you?
It is for once. It's 4 p.m. WA.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay. So this is the Western Australia group. Yeah. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
That makes sense. That's good. So I know my auntie Eileen, who lives in Perth, will be up.
Oh, good.
Hopefully. Okay, good stuff. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now so we can get cracking on this. Let's have a quick share from there. So I'm just going to share from my laptop first of all, just to show you guys. So this is lynxcloud.app. So if you can just open this in a browser on any device that you need to, you'll be able to get hold of LYNX Whiteboard. It's a free lesson preparation software. So all you need to do is open up a browser on any device that you're on and navigate to the web address at the top, lynxcloud.app. And then it should detect what device you're on, and then you should have the appropriate download store over here, so you can get it from your app store. It works completely cross-platform, so you can get it on any device, including all your pupil devices as well, which is really handy. It's completely free. There's no license codes at all, so you don't need to remember any long numbers to put in, and there's no license fee involved at all as well. So it's completely free for you to use whenever you need it. So all you need to do is navigate to lynxcloud.app, download it on your device. If you want to push it out across the school, that's fine as well. You've got the MSI files, which will allow you to push it out to all your devices in one go if you need to. Just in the top right-hand corner here, you've got the little sign-in option. When you click in sign in here, you've got the option then to link it to your Google Drive or your OneDrive, or your Dropbox or your iTunes Apple account if you need to do that from there. Which will link it up to your cloud drive, which is really handy because it means that you can then create lessons on any device, and any device you sign into with the same account, you'll be able to access those lessons that you've created. So as soon as I click on sign in here, you'll see that my little name appears under the organization over here. So I've got myself signed in on the top. And if I click on my drives, I'll be able to see that my cloud drives are available to me on here as well. Okay, so it just means that you can save to or from your cloud drives on any device. Okay, so just really a handy way of being able to use your LYNX content. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start sharing from my Clever Touch screen. So much to my wife's delight, I've got one in my house. So let's just make this a little bit bigger for you guys to see. Go. So I've also installed LYNX Whiteboard application on my Impact Plus. So obviously you can install this on your classroom Clever Touch screen if you need to. If you just navigate to the Clever Store, then you'll find the LYNX Whiteboard app is in there. And you can install it on that device from there. You can also push this out via the MDM. Excuse me, that's my children getting up, so I'm just going to close the door. You can install this via the MDM, so you can push it out to all your Clever Touch screens in your school in one go. Okay, so if I just open the app from there, then this will be the dashboard that you see when you open up LYNX Whiteboard. So there's 6 icons for you on there. We'll have a look at those and what functions they perform. The join function at the bottom in the middle isn't yet active, so that'll be going active in about a month's time or so, and that will allow you to be able to host an interactive lesson on your screen through LYNX Whiteboard, and it will enable all your pupils the ability to join into your lesson live through any device that they have, even via a browser on a device that they don't necessarily need links installed. They'll be able to join in a live lesson, and you'll be able to hand over control to your pupils if you want them to be able to participate in that live lesson that's taking place on the screen. Just looking at the open section on that tab in the middle at the top, this is slightly device specific in terms that if I sign in on my Windows laptop, the drives that will be available for me will be slightly different than if I'm signing on my screen or my iPad, etc. But one thing that will be common will be the access to your cloud drives if you've linked them on lynxcloud.app, as I looked at a minute ago. So that would obviously be the way that I can then enable files to be accessible on any device that I have. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can see there will be a little sign-in page for you there. I've already signed in on my one, so you can see that it's going to link up. And as soon as you sign in with the same account, your drives will all be available to you in there. If you do want to open up Google content, you can open up Google Slides presentations in LYNX. All you need to do is navigate to your Google Slides presentation, double tap on your Google Slides presentation, and that will open as a PDF in LYNX for displaying. And LYNX will also open Smart Notebook files. And in about a month's time as well, we'll also have the option to be able to open Active Inspire files as well. So you'll be able to open and edit those just as you would if you're creating a LYNX document from scratch. So bottom left-hand corner, I'm just going to use the little blue arrow to take me back out to my dashboard. So that's opening of your new files, etc. What we're going to look at now is just opening and creating a new presentation from here. So I'm going to click on Create. And then out of the pages from here, I always tend to click on default because it gives me a good screen size. If you can click on 4.3 in the bottom left if you've used Smart Notebook files before, or if you've got a different screen and you're just using LYNX Whiteboard on a different screen, you've got different options for your presentation modes there. So I'm just going to click on default and create. So I'm straight into a little canvas at the bottom here where I've got all of my different pen tools available for me in the bottom at the middle. In the bottom left-hand corner, if I choose one of my pens, then I've got my little 3-line menu. If I click on my 3-line menu, I've got the dashboard option there, which is about there, which will take me back out to my tiles, my 6 tiles for opening and so on and so forth. I've got the option to save my presentation, print or share. I can open presentations that I've already created by going back to my dashboard. We've got the option to do some split screening in here as well. And then towards the cog, towards the top, we've got our cog, which will allow us to change a few options on here as well. So just on this section down here, we have all of our page options. So at the moment, I'm showing 1 page out of 1. So I can use the Add Page button to add in some more pages. And you can see as I'm clicking that, it's depressing that button there. As I press on that button, it should add in some more pages. And you can see that the page number here is increasing. And this little button here will show me all of my thumbnails for all my pages that are open. So I've got 7 pages open now. So if I click on that button there, you can see all my 7 pages are going to be displayed on the left-hand side. Now, within each of the pages over here, and I'm just going to change my pen here because I've got my funky rainbow pen on. On each of these pages over here to the left, there's a few icons in each of the individual pages that would be useful for you. So you've got your page number in the top left of each of those pages. In the bottom left of each of those pages, you have a 2-way arrow, which will just allow you then, if you pull that down, you can drag that to any position, which will just enable you to quickly reorder your pages if you need to, so you can change the order of those nice and quickly. Just in the top right-hand corner of each of those pages, you have a little 3-line menu, which will allow you to then change the options on that page itself. So the first thing you have is the option to change a color background. So if I navigate onto that page and then change my background, you can see just by tapping on that, you've got the option to change your colors nice and quickly. You have a little color wheel, which will allow you to then tailor that even more if you need to. So if you need a specific color for a child who's got a visual impairment, you can change that nice and quickly using the color wheel. From the drop-down background options tab, you can then apply that to all new pages or use it on all new pages going forward, or clear that background if you need to. So if I click on apply to all pages, you can see how quickly that puts that onto all the pages to the side. So it's nice and quick to be able to pop that onto all of your pages. You've also slightly further down the menu in here, got the option to do things like insert new pages, insert pages after the page or before, and copy pages and completely duplicate pages. Now, the difference between copy and duplicate will be that copy will copy a page and only replicate that once you hit on the paste button, whereas the duplicate will immediately duplicate that page underneath your existing page for you. Okay, so just a few options to be aware of from those little icons on there. And the last option we have on here is the little link icon, which is the option, gives me the option then to pull that page onto another page, and then I can use that page as a link to another page. And I'll get that going once we've got a bit more content on, and that becomes a little bit more visible for you. But it just means I can tap on those pages, and then I can move between those pages as I need to. So I'm just going to hit on the X just up the top up here, just to close down my thumbnails. And then what we're going to do is start looking at some of the tools that we have along the bottom, in the middle, along this little section here. So the first option we have on here is our pen icon. Sorry, the first option actually we have is our little hand icon, which is our cursor. So that will allow me then to select objects, group objects, move objects, and resize objects, and so on. Once we've got some objects, we'll have a look at how that works. To the right of that, we have our little pen tray. And by clicking on any of the pens, what you should see is that in the top corner of each box, when the pen is selected, there is a little white pop-up arrow. And that allows me then just to tailor the pen and choose the type of pen I want and the size of nib and so on. So two options at the top, you have the pen, and then you have the option for color and size and so on. So you can just tap on those to move between the two. So if I tap on my inking pen and then tap on the color, I've got the option to change the nib size by clicking on the circles. And then obviously I've got the colors underneath, or my color grid, should I need to choose any particular color from there. And LYNX Whiteboard will be 20-point touch. So you can use your 20 fingers, if you've got 20 fingers on the screen at once. So you can see very quickly, I can change the color, change the size of the nib, and have a different type of writing pen on the screen. So just going back, just to point out a couple of the useful pens that we have on here. We have a laser pen, which is just really useful because this will disappear after a few seconds of the writing on the screen. So it's just great because you can then highlight content without actually making any permanent annotations on screen. We have things like highlighters. We have a rainbow pen, which is great because it's a different color for every stroke. So if you're teaching something like handwriting to pupils, then you'll be able to see whenever they take their finger off of the page to form their letters, because the pen will change color. We have an animated rainbow pen, which again will just cycle through all the colors, so it just makes every lesson a little bit more exciting. And then we also have on the next line down, handwriting recognition pen. So with the handwriting recognition pen, this will detect your handwriting and turn it into a font for you. And you can output and write at different sizes on the screen, and it will detect the size that you're writing at, and it will output to those sizes. So if I write larger, then the text that comes out on screen will be larger too. I'll show you where you can change those fonts that the pen outputs to in due course. We also have a shape recognition tool, so you can draw shapes on the screen, and it will detect the shapes that you're drawing, and it will turn those into the shapes, even if you're very bad at drawing circles. And next to that, we have the maths recognition tool. So with the maths recognition tool, if we write a calculation on the screen and include an equals, then the LYNX Whiteboard will be able to calculate the answer for you. So the answer is actually hidden behind the box. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my little cursor option at the bottom, the little finger option just on the bottom toolbar with the blue line underneath it. And I can click on the box and I can move the box out of the way to reveal the answer for me. But what you'll also see is that as soon as I tap on an object on the page, I have an edit bar that appears underneath. And depending on what the object is that you bring into LYNX, the edit bar will have slightly different options for you depending on what the object is. So what I have along the bottom here is I have some options. So for example, from the pen tool, I have the option to be able to change the thickness of the border of that object. And if I want to change the color of that border, then I can do that nice and quickly as well. You've got the option to change the fill of the object. So you could even make it completely transparent if you needed to, or you can make it a different color as you need to. If we had text in there, then we've got the option to change any of the text options. And we also, from the water droplet, have the option to change the opacity of the page. So that would then allow me then, if I need to use it as a slider, and then that will make that object more transparent as I go across. So it's just nice for little hide and reveal techniques and so on and so forth. The next option along will allow me to then change where that object is in my pages in terms of the layers of my page. So LYNX works with a background option, which means that you can lock content into the background of your page if you need to, which means it becomes immovable on the page. and it just means that you can then secure things away from small fingers in the classroom that might be moving content around. Or if you want content to be in your background of your page, then you can use the layering option here to move that content around and so on. And we'll come back to that in due course. The 3-line menu at the end will just allow you a couple more options. So you've got the option for cutting and pasting, as you can see with the kind of cutting and pasting options that you have there. And we also have the option to delete an object with the bin. And if I want to just make a replication, then I can just use the 2 dots at the end there, and that will just create an exact replica. We also have a replicator option, which is an infinite cloner, which will activate when we come into our foreground mode and to start our presentation and go into a display mode, which we can access through our 3-line menu in the bottom left-hand corner through Start Presenting. And again, we'll come back to that a little bit later. And then again, this is also where the editable while presenting will become useful, because it will allow you to move content around whilst you're in your presentation mode. And the last option you have on there is a link option. So the link option will allow you to create links from an object, essentially creating them into a button on the page. So you can link it to a file, which would be a great idea if you've got something like a sound file, like an MP3 file, then you can link it to a file, and then you can have that as a sound button on the page. So it's great. You can create your own soundboards. If you've got things like phonics sounds on the screen, you can type in the letters, and then the children can hit the button. And if it's linked to a sound file for that phonic sound, then it can say the phonic sound out loud through your screen speakers. Or you can also link it to another slide in the presentation. So if you want it to become like a hot button to be able to link to another slide in the presentation, then you can do that. You can write, menu on the screen and link it to the menu page. So you can really make interactive presentations on your screen, and your pupils can even use this to make interactive books on their own devices as well. So there's some of the few options that we've got along the bottom. There's a couple of other useful pens, particularly for things like maths in here. So we have our line pens. So for my line pen, if I draw a straight line on the page, then I did have the option to change that beforehand. So I could change the color and size of that line before I actually write it using my little pen menu. Or subsequently, if I use my finger icon, then I can tap on an object afterwards, and then I can change the properties of that line. So I can change the thickness, I can change the size, etc. Again, the edit bar is slightly changed now because I'm tapping on a line as opposed to a box on the page. I can change the style of the line, so I can add in dotted lines. I can have arrows at the beginning and the end of my lines if I need to. Nice and quick and easy. If I want to add extra points in my line, then I can do that as well. And then that can allow me to do things like curve my line and so on and so forth. So the line pens that you've got on there, there's a variety of line pens. So our curve line, we can drag it out onto the page. And when we tap on this, we can use the green dots to curve the line. So it's great for making graphs on pages and so on. We can add in extra dots on the page using the add symbol. And again, that will allow us just to curve the line to our needs. So great if you're looking at creating graphs on pages and so on and so forth. And again, the strike lane with the elbow pen as well. If you draw a line on the page with the elbow pen, again, adding in more dots on here will allow you to create your own compound shapes if you need to. So you can just create shapes as you need to. Okay, so nice and simple as well. And what you can also do as well with the lines on the screen, if you have shapes on the screen. So I'll come back to the shapes in a second as to how you bring them onto the page. But if I did have a shape on the screen, if I wanted to create something like a flow diagram, if I pull my line to the edge of the box, you can see that the green circle changes to being a red symbol. And there's 9 points around the edge of every shape. So you can snap that to the corner. So if I snap that and release on the corner, then that will join that to that square. And you can see as I move my square around, my line will now be snapped to that. So it's great for making flow diagrams and so on, where you have that option to join those together for making flowcharts and so on and so forth. Okay, so those are all your pen tools at the bottom. And like I say, you can have different pens available to you all at the same time. So if you want to have a range of different pens available, you've got nice quick access. So it's nice and quick to flick between the pens at the bottom. You can see just very quickly flicking on the different pens. You can have those pens available to you nice and quickly. Okay. So moving along from the pen tools, the next option we have on the bottom is our text tool. So if I double tap the text tool, then it will give me the option to change and have 3 quickly available fonts for me. So I'm not sure if you can see it on your screen at the bottom, but at the moment, the top option, Creepster, has got a blue line around that font. And as I move down the fonts down the page, the blue line moves around the box. So that allows me to select which font I'm using. So if I choose my font, as soon as I tap onto the page, I can then start typing in that particular font. Again, once that font is selected with my cursor highlighted, I can then use my fingers on screen to use as a pinch and zoom on that object and move that around. And again, underneath, I've got the option to do things like change the color of the font. I could add in background colors and so on and so forth. And again, you've obviously got all your text options in there as well, if you need to change the style of the font and so on and so forth. And again, you can change the slider to change the size as well. So again, going back to our little text option at the bottom, if I then choose a different font from that little drop-down menu with the 3 options, typing on the screen with a different option will obviously produce a different font for you. So it's nice and quick to move between the different fonts. What you have at the top of that box there as well is also a little cog, which will allow you then to change and edit those fonts to make them suit your particular needs. So if I click on the cog, it takes me through to an options page. And then you should see at the top, I've got style 1, style 2, and style 3, which matched up with my 3 quick selection fonts. Just underneath here, I've got a drop-down menu, which will allow me then to choose the particular font that I want. And I can change the default outsize of my font. And again, I can change the color. And again, I can add in things like bold, italic, and underline as I need to. So as soon as I've chosen that, I can obviously manipulate my 3 fonts. And they'll be saved for me in my little text menu. What you also have here is the option to change your handwriting recognition tool as well. So if you want to, you can write on the screen with your handwriting pen, your handwriting recognition pen, and it will output to the font that you choose. So if you have something like a dyslexic friendly font, you can write on the screen with your text recognition pen, and it will output to the dyslexic friendly font. I just got a quick question in the chat there. Is that an on-screen keyboard in LYNX, or is it a system, or is it your system on the screen keyboard? Yeah, so that's that keyboard that's popping up on there, Deb. That's the Android keyboard that pops up whenever I'm using any text kind of option on the on-screen Android app in Lux mode. So anywhere I type using the font option on here, so as soon as I've selected my font type, that's the on-screen Android keyboard that will pop up. Okay. If I'm using my laptop or my Chromebook, then whenever my font is selected here, as soon as I tap on the screen, then I wouldn't use my on-screen keyboard. I would have the keyboard that's built into my laptop or my device. So if you are using a touchscreen device, something like an iPad, then whenever you tap, then the on-screen keyboard will pop up. If you've already got a keyboard attached to your device, it will then detect that and it will use that keyboard that you've got there. The next option we have along the bottom is our little crafting knife tool. So this will enable us to do things like cropping and so on and so forth. And I'm going to come back to that in a short time whilst I've got a bit more content on page as opposed to the content I have here. In order to bring in some content, I'm going to use this little add button on the toolbar at the bottom. So the add button will allow you just to add content to your page. So we have content at the bottom. I've got insert shape, which is just a very, very quick way of inserting shapes. So there's 6 kind of commonly used shapes on there, and you can choose your shape. So you can see as soon as I choose a shape, it tells me which shape I've selected. And then you can very quickly choose your color as well. And that will obviously change those in the shape menu. So that just means very quickly I can drag a shape out to my desired color and size on screen. Okay, so nice and quick and nice and easy to do that. Obviously, once I tap on those shapes, then my edit bar becomes visible underneath, which then allows me then to change things like the border and the fill color and the opacity and so on and so forth. What you can also happen with this as well is if you double tap into any shape, then you've got the ability then to type straight into that shape. So it's just really useful if you want to make things like counters and numbers, then you've got that option as well. And obviously if I tap on my font size there, I can tap on the font and I can make that nice and large as well. So it's nice and quick and nice and easy. Just double tap into a shape, tap your numbers into there, and then if I tap on that shape again, I can then change the size of that nice and quickly. So it's nice and easy to create that kind of content on screen. With any object that you have, like a shape on screen, you can double tap into it and then you can add text to it nice and quickly. So I'm just going to go back to my little add button down at the bottom just to show you some of the extra content that's available in here apart from shapes. So I'm going to click on my content tab. Once I click on my content tab, my little content box pops up on the left-hand side. There's two types of content that are available for you. And you should see at the bottom of the little search bar there, I've got local content and I've got media search. So media search is content that's provided by external suppliers. And you can see all the suppliers down the side there. You've got Microsoft Bing for images and videos. You've got Giphy and Pexels for GIFs, Pixabay for some clip art, and some videos from Pixabay and YouTube as well. In order to bring some of that content in, I'm just going to tap into the search bar at the top. And then using my on-screen keyboard, I will type a word and hit OK. And then I'm just going to tap on the type of content that I'd like to bring in. So if I tap on Bing Images, then this will provide me with some images to search from. I've got multiple pages at the bottom, so I can flick through those pages using the previous and next buttons if I don't find the video or picture I need straight away. And then I can just drag an image from the left-hand side onto my canvas and release, and then that will be now stored onto my page. Obviously, I can then move that image around, and I've got the option to resize that with my fingers as a pinch and zoom, or with my mouse using the grey dots around the outside. The green dot will allow you to rotate around the center point. Okay, so it's just nice and quick and easy to bring that content in. And with LYNX Whiteboard, with the images on the left-hand side and the media search content, every point of contact will bring an image into the screen. So if I use multiple fingers on the left-hand side, you can see I can drag multiple pictures into my presentation in one go. And obviously, every one of those images is one finger contact on the image panel to the left. And then as soon as I release those, they will be put into my presentation, and obviously I can use them however I need to from there. So nice quality images that you can bring in with the resolution on there. Okay, I'm just going to use the arrow in the top left-hand corner, which should flash blue, which is just going to take me back to my media search there. And if I add another page, what I'm going to do here is just bring in a YouTube video. So if I bring in a YouTube video, again, I can bring in multiple videos. So if I just drag it across, if I want to use multiple points of contact, it will bring in multiple videos at once. Unfortunately, my Wi-Fi here is shocking, so I'm just going to bring in one video. So this will be a YouTube video that will be embedded in your presentation. Excuse me. This will only play the root video from YouTube. So you won't have any adverts, you won't have any comments, and you won't have any suggested videos. So it's those three things that can obviously drive teachers a bit bonkers sometimes, is those these unknowns that you have in a classroom where you don't want something to pop up with a horrible comment or a horrible image to the side. So this will only play the root video for you. If I tap on the YouTube link icon in the bottom right hand corner, then this will open the video in a YouTube browser. So it will open up your browser for you, navigate to YouTube, and then display this video in YouTube in a browser for you. Or I can then have this video embedded in my presentation and play it from within my video. So I can resize it as well if I need to. Just get rid of that little arrow there. So once my video has buffered, then this will be ready to play. I've got my play symbol in the bottom left hand corner here. And what I also have on the little toolbar that appears underneath in this little toolbar here is the second icon along will allow me then to enter the video. So once my video is buffered, if I click on the enter video button, then that will play my video full screen for me. So mine hasn't gone full screen because it hasn't fully downloaded yet or buffered. But once that's ready to go, you can then play that presentation and play that video in your presentation. There we go. Oh, it has gone full screen now. There we go. That's great. Okay. And what you also have down the bottom here is you should see a little arrow which is going slightly dark. It's just to the right of my page numbers in the bottom left-hand corner. So it should be sort of slightly flashing darker color. That will just allow me then to exit my full screen video if I need to. Okay. So I think I had a quick question in the chat there. Links to YouTube videos. So yeah, so Deb, with that one there, if I click on the video here, you can see in the bottom right hand corner, I've got the little YouTube symbol. So if I click on that YouTube symbol, it will allow me to it will automatically open a browser for me and navigate to this video and play the video in the browser. If I want to link out to a YouTube video, then I could also have the URL, so I could have the web address for that video and pop that onto an object as a link. So if I did something like insert a shape, then what I can do is I can insert my shape onto the page, and then by tapping on it, I've got the 3-dot menu at the end, and I can link here, and then I can paste the web address in here, or I can type it in depending on if I know what the web address is, etc., etc. I can type it in there, and then that will be able to link again out to a browser.
Yep, that's what I wanted, Ryan. Thanks.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Great stuff. Okay. So yeah, so that will link definitely out. And what you'll find is once you put a link onto an object, so if I just link this to a slide, okay, what you'll see now in the top right hand corner of that image, of that little yellow square, there is a little link icon on there. So it's just appearing in the top right hand corner of that, and it looks like a kind of I'm not sure what color that is. Is that teal? It's like a little circle in the top left hand corner of that yellow square with a little link icon, which means that that is now an active link. And obviously, if I had a separate yellow square in there, you'll see that when I tap on that one, it doesn't have that link in the corner. So you can see that that's how you can tell whether you've got a link on your object or not. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to some of those photographs actually of the elephants on there. And what might be quite useful is just to have a look at some of those cropping tools that we talked about at the bottom. So from the little knife option, which is just to the right of the T at the bottom on the toolbar. So this has just got a few options in here for me to be able to do some cropping, filling and highlighting and so on. So the first option is your little paint pot, which will allow you then to select a color or select your color wheel up to get a more specific color if you need to, and then you can just tap on and use that as your background fill if you need to. So just another way to fill your background and fill all your icons and so on, or objects on the page. You also have a block highlighter in here, which is just really useful for being able to highlight text on a page. So if you have some text on the page, let's see if we've got some text on one of these previous pages. There we go. Let me just move that text on there. So if I wanted to highlight some text, I can click on the highlighter pen on the bottom. I can choose my highlighter color, and then this will just allow me then to click and drag over my text. So it's just a lot neater if you're looking to highlight some text that you've imported into the page than using the highlighter pen that's available from the pen menu option. So if I was going to go to highlighter in here, make this nice and thick. See, this one is just a little rougher around the edges, as it were. Okay, so there's another couple of tools that you'll find useful in here from the cropping tool section, and they come from the little cropping button at the end on the right hand end there. So the first one is crop rectangle, which will just allow you then to select an object that's rectangular in shape, and then when you release your finger, then that will just do a nice rectangular crop of that object for you. The next one is crop freehand, which just gives you a bit more control over the area that you're cropping. So if you're looking to get a specific section out from a photograph, it just means that you can drag your finger around an object nice and quickly, and when you release, you can see that it's actually trimmed that object to the size that I have. So it's nice and quick and nice and easy to be able to pull content out. If I didn't want the full elephant picture, I can just use that cropped area out. So really useful if you want to pull content out from images. The next option you have down here, I'm going to skip shape split. I'll come back to that in a second. The next one down is knife, which just allows you then to cut objects. So it just means that you can divide objects on the page. So if I drag, you can see I've dragged through the top left elephant there. And when I release, what that will do is it will split that photograph into two sections. So it's great if you want to make things like jigsaws on the page. Particularly if you've got younger children, you can then create your own jigsaw shapes on the page and so on and so forth. So you can make multiple little incisions into a page with your options on there. And then very quickly, you've got your own little jigsaw that you've made on page where you can then pull those sections out and get your pupils to move those around, rotate and so on and so forth to fit into the page. And the last option on that page down there was on that toolbar is the shape split option. So I'm just going to bring in a square and a rectangle because these are the two shapes that this works with on here. Just bringing a square and a rectangle, sorry, a circle and a rectangle onto the page. And then if I navigate down to my toolbar with my snipping tool, my knife, and come to my cropping section again, then I've got shape split at the bottom. So by clicking on shape split, this will allow me with a rectangle to drag down the page. We'll do if I've got the right rectangle on there. Wait 1 second. Bear with me 1 second. I think I actually pressed knife as opposed to shape split. There we go. Okay, do bear with me 1 second. I think I need to replace my rectangle with a more accurate square. There we go. Okay, so shape split on here, if I drag it down my square, what you can see is it creates rows. And if I drag it left or right, it will create columns. And then once I've released, what that will do is that will now split that square into those different segments. So I can then pull out in any individual squares that I need to on there. Obviously, what you can then do is change the color of those squares. So it's great if you're looking to do something like fractions or equivalent fractions, where you can have a look at fractions with your colored shapes. What you can also then do is make grids with these or numbered grids, etc. So if you want to, you can obviously then tap on each of the individual items, and then you can create yourself nice little hide and reveal type grids, etc., etc. So if I had a picture of an elephant, for example, actually that's a video, so let me just go back to a picture of an elephant. So if I dragged a picture of an elephant into my page, and let's get that the right size as my square. Then what I could do is then hide that behind my squares. If I tap on it, I can use my little layering option here, and I can move that to the back. So I can move that behind my square. So I've now got a really nice activity where I could remove any of these numbered squares to try and reveal what's behind my shape. Or indeed, I could tap on any of those individual objects and use my opacity slider to then reveal what's behind my shape as well. So it's great if you're looking at things like words and looking at the shape of words and so on and so forth, you can use that option on there. Just going back to that shape split tool. So again, from the bottom crafting knife section to the cropping section to shape split, if I apply that to a circle, then I can drag clockwise around the circle to increase the number of divisions, or drag anti-clockwise around the circle to reduce the number of divisions. And again, once that's been reduced, once that's been released, that will now be split into its various components. Again, with each of these, you could then change the individual color as you need to. What's quite nice about LYNX Whiteboard as well is with my cursor highlighted, I could drag my finger over all of my objects, and then I've got a little group icon, which is just to the right of the water droplet on the bottom. It should go slightly darker now for you. That will allow me then to group all of those objects into one group. So I can now move that around as a group of objects on the page if I need to. Even though objects are within that group, I could then move them around and move them about within that group, and then they actually still stay as part of the group as a whole. So it just means, again, I can manage my content nice and easily. Or you can obviously move those about as you need to. And then each of those individual elements on there as well will also be editable. So you can see from the edit bar underneath the red segment there, I've got the option to tap on the angle there, which will allow me to do things like change that to be just the arc, or I can have that as a percentage, or if I show the radius on there, or I can show the angle, show the area of that as well. Red and blue dots will allow me then to change that. So you can see as I drag out the red and blue dots, then those properties will be reflected by the changes that I make. So it's nice and handy if you want that content to be shown on screen, or you can hide that depending on what it is that you're needing to do. So some great options for being able to change that content on screen. Okay, so they're all the tools that we've got along the bottom, and there's some of the media content that we've looked at on there. Like I said, there's a whole range of different content that's available to you from that media search. The other content that we have is available from our local content. So that's the tab at the bottom, which will just allow me then to change to local content. So this is content that's supplied and available to you in all your versions of LYNX. So you've got just some content to note. Top left-hand corner, we've got our background tab. So all of these backgrounds are editable, so you can change them to your needs. all you need to do is drag a background from the left-hand column into your page and then release. So that background is now available for me to edit using the edit bar that's appeared at the bottom. So you can see from the little pen option that I click, that then allows me to do things like change the thickness of my lines. And I can change the color of my lines by tapping on the colors. And then from the two T's at the bottom in the middle, that allows me to change the grid size. So I can then slide that and change the grid size. And if you were using a laptop on there, if you just hover your mouse over any of those icons on the toolbar, it will tell you what they do. So I can't do that on my touch screen, I'm afraid, but it will show you on a laptop. If you just hover your mouse over, it will pop up with grid size and so on and so forth. So you've got that slider to make it nice and easy. And all your backgrounds are editable on there as well. And as soon as I tap onto my background, that's now locked into the background. And you can see if I try to drag it or move it around, I just get my drag rectangle to show that I can't interact with that. If I did want to go and change my background, first thing I can do is delete my background entirely by dragging on the delete background and releasing this on the page. Or if I just wanted to change the properties of my background, I would come back to my add button at the bottom, and then I've got page options on there, which will allow me to change the background, which should do. Bear with me 1 second. That button seems to have disappeared since about 20 minutes ago. That should have a little tab on it, which allows me to change my background and have my background options on there. I'm just going to try that one again. Okay, that's bizarre, my little background. So it should have a little button on here which says edit background, or background options, it should say, and it should allow me then to edit the background and go in and change the properties of that background. But for some bizarre reason unknown to me, that's changed since about 15 minutes ago. Okay, let's go back to our home page on here. So just to point out a couple of other bits of content for you on here, we've got our little maths folder, and our little maths folder on here just has a load of interactive maths content that you can use. So if I drag an angle out onto the page, what you'll find, all this content is editable. So again, you've got the green dots, which will allow you to rotate around the center point. And the green dots will also allow you then to change the properties of that angle, so you can just drag them out. The edit bar underneath will allow you to do things like hide the angle and invert the angle if you need to. And then obviously you have your interactive protractor that you can then drag out on screen to use on here. Again, you can resize and pinch and zoom with your fingers if you need to. So if your pupils are using this, they can, if they've got links downloaded as well, they can also have this interactive content on their device as well. Any red and blue dots will allow you then to drag out your angle, and then you can use the stamp icon in the center of the protractor to then stamp that onto the page. So if I move my protractor out of the way, you see 41 degrees was the angle measured. So if I come back and tap my angle and do my reveal, you can see how close I got to the original angle. What I can obviously do with these as well is do things like use my little cloning tool, which will then allow me to very quickly change the color, change the properties of those angles. So you can see very quickly what I'll be able to do is create myself a worksheet for my pupils that I can print directly from LYNX with a range of different angles available to me on there. Even things like clocks that we have on the page, so you can obviously drag out multiple clocks onto the page, and then again you can obviously resize those. And then from the clock options button on the edit bar that appears underneath, gives you the option to do things like taking off hands on there. So if you're looking at just telling the time with hour hands, you can just have that available on your page. You can turn it into a digital clock. You can make it a real live time clock if you need to, or you've got things like a stopwatch, count down and count up as well. So all nice and editable on your page for you. What you should also have in LYNX as well is this little folder called CCA. It might be called My Content, depending on which version you've got. Just on the left-hand side there, it's just underneath the, what do you guys call it, a runner, a trainer, the little sports shoe on the left-hand side. So that folder there will allow me to create my own content and drag it into the side folder. So anything that I create in LYNX on my main canvas here, if I want to use it again, all I need to do is drag it into my side folder and release. And then that'll now be available for me to use again in the future. So if I had created my own content, so for example, the compound shape that I made earlier, Find it. There we go. So this shape here, if I wanted to use this, I can drag this into my side folder and release, and you can see my little icon is now up the top where that's brought that in. So that then just allows me then to, in the future, drag that icon out at any point that I need it and use it on my page. So just a nice quick tip to save your content on there. And if you guys have other resources that you use in school, so things like other software packages like Communicate to Print or widget symbols, whatever you might use for special needs children or for modern foreign languages, etc., you can then add in your own folders onto that left-hand file menu there, so you can have access to your own resources and image banks that you might use, etc., so that they're all available in links for you as well. Okay,
Ryan, can I interrupt again?
Yeah, of course you
can. Can you save whole pages?
As
like a template in that folder?
I believe you can. Yeah, let me just have a quick check on that one, Deb. I've saved background tabs before. Let me see if I can save a whole. Well, I'm not sure if I can save a whole page. I'm not sure I can drag a whole page in there, I'm afraid, Deb. No, I don't think I can say. I can save a background image.
Yep.
So what I've done before is, so if I go to media search before, so what I've done before is I've had something like, what do you guys call it, a soccer pitch, so a football pitch. So we've worked with football clubs before where we've had
soccer, correct,
soccer pitches as a background. So if I wanted to, I can obviously use that as my background image. On the page, I'll just wait for that resolution to catch up. So I could use that as my background. Pop that into the background. Resize that. So that would now be my static image as my background on the page. So what I can do is I can then use that image and drag that into my folder. So if I go back to my local content, I can drag that image into my background, so I've got it to use as a background image, but I don't think you can save a whole page, Deb. I will double check on that one for you.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll come back to you about that one, Deb. I'll let Chantal or Amina know about that one and come back to you, because I'm not sure you can drag an entire page on there, as it were. I'm just wondering if you can copy and paste it, but I don't think you can either. Okay, yeah, I'll come back to you about that one, Deb.
You also might be able to save it as the background and then edit the background when you dragged it back out again.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
I can play a bit too.
Yeah, have a go. Let me know. So one thing you can do is just, again, I was just going to come back to these little link icons that we have on links here, which are just in the little bottom corner of each of the pages over here on the left hand side. This little link icon, and what this will allow you to do is it will allow you to drag these little pages out onto your presentation, so you can just position them wherever you need to on your page. You can resize them, you can make them more transparent or not as you need to. So it's quite nice because you can then hide them with other objects as well. So if I had something like a shape, if I drag out a rectangle on the screen, for example, I can pop this, bring that to the foreground. So if I pop this on top of my rectangle and then make it transparent, that will now act as a link on top of my object, so I can then tap on that and it will act as a link. So if I go into my presentation mode from the bottom left hand corner and go to start presenting, then I can tap on these pages. So you can see there what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap on my rectangle there, and it will take me back to that page that I've got on there. So I think I've actually gone to the wrong page there. Let me look. There we go. So I didn't make any backlinks on there. So what it just means at this point is I can tap on any of those little mini icons that I've got on the page. Oh, is that catching up? Sorry, do bear with me 1 second. I think that's not caught up on Zoom. There we go. So from that page there, I've now got 3 hyperlinks on the page with those mini pages that are existing. And obviously the one that's on top of the blue rectangle just looks like a blue rectangle, but it's actually an opaque link to another page. So if I tap on the blue rectangle, then that's actually going to act as a link and take me through to another page in my presentation. So it's just really useful if you want to have that way to navigate around your links pages. You can do that using those hyperlinks and using those little icons that you just drag in from the page onto your presentation, and then they can sit on your presentation or be hidden wherever you need to. And again, that's great if your kids are making things like interactive stories and interactive books, then they can do that on their devices, and then they can create those kind of pathways and have those options on the page for the reader to follow multiple choices as they go through their story, and then obviously takes them to different pages in their presentations and so on. Okay, so there's the content and the tools at the bottom. So we're just going to move to the bottom left-hand corner from the little menu here. The next option we've got is just coming up towards the top. It's split screen, which just allows us to have two bits of content open at the same time. So if I click on split screen, click on center split and then apply. This will allow me to have two presentations open at the same time if I need to. So obviously I've got the option to open a presentation if I want to, or I can create a new one. I can open up a browser, etc. And then at that point, obviously I've got two different presentations open at the same time. So you could have pupils working on both sides of the screen. You can see I've got 20 points of touch on both sides of the screen as well. So you've got nice activities and how that can work. Obviously, you could have the same presentation open at different pages if you need to, if your kids are working at different speeds. And obviously on the right-hand side of the screen, you can also have a browser open if you need to. I'm just conscious of the time, so I'm just going to run and see if we can get onto the games tab here. So coming from the three-line menu in the bottom left, we've got the little dashboard. And coming back to the main dashboard on here is going to allow me to navigate to the games tab in the bottom left. So this just takes me through to a little section where I've got about 80 or so different activities to use. About 12 of them or so are editable, so you can change the content. And a lot of them are STEM activities. So you've got a lot of science, technology, engineering, and maths activities that you can use that recreate situations that are quite difficult to replicate in a classroom. So top left-hand corner, I've got the option to create a new folder. And I've got the option then, if I want to do that, I can create my new little collection of activities, which will allow me then obviously to manage my games and my audience that they're for, so I can keep all games for different year groups together or different lessons and so on. The little drop-down menu from there will just show me, should be top right-hand corner, all the files that I've created. So if I wanted to create a new game, I'd have to create the folder first, then navigate into that folder before I create the game. So if I want to create a game in my length folder, I'm going to click on length in the top right. That takes me into my length folder. I'll just wait for this to catch up on your screen. There we go. So I'm now within my length folder. So if I want to create an activity within that folder, I navigate into it, and then I'm going to hit on add game to create a new game. So if I click on add game, then you'll find the editable games are towards the top. And then if we scroll down, you'll see that there's an alphabetized selection of different types of activity that you might want to use depending on the age group of your pupils. I'm just going to show you a couple of quick activities that you can edit. So one of them is going to be a spinner. So I'm going to hit on spinner here. So you can quickly tap in at the top and you can rename your activity. And then in the bottom here, you can just add in some of the different options for you. So obviously this could be pupil names, it could be verbs if you're looking to write a story, depending on whatever it is you want to put in that you want to use as a kind of randomizer. Let's put in a nice friendly brown snake on there. There we go. So as soon as I've created my content, I'm just going to hit on the save button at the bottom. And that's going to create my game for me. I can even edit the picture in the top right hand corner if I want to, but now that's created my game, I'm going to tap on it, and that's going to launch my interactive spinner on screen, where I can then just spin that straight away. Obviously what I can do is get my pupils to create this kind of content on their devices as well if they're using LYNX, or I could use this in a split screening scenario where I have my spinner on one side and my presentation on the other side. And I'll also just show you the quiz option very quickly. So this is a little bit like Kahoot. So if I click on quiz to create a new quiz, very quickly, I can type in here. I can actually type. This is the problem of getting up at 5 AM, is I can't actually see properly. There we go. So if I tap in here, let me just very quickly type that in there. So in here, you can just type in all your answers nice and quickly. There we go. And then obviously you can choose whether which one of those is the right answer for your option using the tick box. Again, as soon as you're ready, you can hit save, and then you can tap your game to get that going. If anybody has a device with a QR code reader on it, in the bottom right-hand corner, I've got the option to share my presentation. So anybody with a QR code reader can scan this QR code, and then it will download the questions to their device. So if you've got one at home now and you're very quick, you can scan that, and then it should hopefully show that question on your device in front of you. Even if you're teaching remotely, so if you're using something like Google Meet, Teams, or Zoom, you can share this content via the camera feed so that your kids can scan it at home wherever they are. And then hopefully if I get that going, you guys should see that on your device in front of you. Okay, so nice, quick, easy way that you can use that content on there. I'm just going to go back to presentation on here. Let's go for this one here. Just to have a look at saving and printing and so on and so forth. So again, just going back to the bottom left-hand corner menu, we've got our little 3-line menu where I've got the option to save as. And again, just renaming that folder at the bottom, that file at the bottom. You've got the option to save that to your cloud accounts, or if you're using your PC in your classroom, you can save that to your shared drive, and you can obviously access content, and then your other teachers can access it from there. Obviously, if I save it to my OneDrive or my Google Drive, I can then access that on any device that I sign into via links. And also on that little side menu in the bottom left-hand corner from the 3-line menu, you've got the option to print and share. So the printing option just shows you a little preview. So obviously we mentioned earlier on making worksheets and so on. So if I can find something like my little maths worksheet there, you can see exactly what this would look like before you print it out. So again, it just means that you've got the option to then create worksheets and see what they look like before you print them. Or indeed, I can share it so my pupils can have an interactive version of this presentation as well. So they could then download this and they can open this on their device, and they can have this running from there. Very soon, your pupils will be able to open a QR code and scan links into a browser on their device, and links will open in a browser on their device. That'll be in about a month's time. So they won't even need to have links installed. They can run links in a browser on any device that scans a QR code, and they can have that on their device. Okay, so I'm very conscious of the time, and we're heading towards, I don't know what time it is now. So is it 5 o'clock your time over there? I just wanted, we've got a few minutes before we end. What I'll do is I've recorded this session, so I will share the recording with ASI so you guys can have that available. Do check out our YouTube channel where there's an actual playlist for LYNX Whiteboard with a whole load of this content on there for you as well. So you can have a look at that and just break down any kind of areas that you need to. Obviously, ASI are there to support you guys as well. And actually, I think we've even got a little trip out to Australia from the UK in August. So maybe we'll be getting around and seeing some of you guys in your classrooms too. But I'll open it up. If anybody's got any questions at all, please do feel free to put them in the chat. Quite happy to take questions for about 30 seconds or so. Thank you for your comments, very handy, nice comments there. Thank you very much for attending. Really appreciate your interest in LYNX Whiteboards. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording there.